I never thought a house I built with love would one day make me feel like an intruder. It was a quiet autumn morning when the Uber dropped me off in front of the gray brick house at the end of Maplewood Drive. The air smelled of wet leaves and pine. I stood there for a moment, looking at the home I hadn't seen in almost 5 years. The one I'd poured my life savings into so my son could have a better life. The house looked beautiful, almost too beautiful, like something from a magazine. The flower beds were perfectly trimmed, the porch furniture coordinated in soft gray and cream. It didn't feel like mine anymore. I had moved to Florida after my husband passed, but after years of loneliness, I decided to surprise my son, Michael, and visit him in Seattle. I wanted to see him, to meet the woman he'd married last year, the one he'd only told me about through pictures and polite phone calls. The front door opened before I could even ring the bell. A tall woman stood there, stylish and polished, wearing a light blue blouse and cream trousers. Her blonde hair was tied neatly, and her perfume floated in the cool air. "Yes, can I help you?" she asked, her tone calm but slightly guarded. I smiled, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "Good morning, dear. I'm looking for Michael." She tilted her head, squinting. "My husband's not home right now. Who are you?" My heart skipped. "Her husband. I'm his mother," I said gently. Her expression froze, confusion clouding her bright blue eyes. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "I'm Michael's mother," I repeated, smiling softly. She blinked, her lips parting in disbelief. "That's impossible. Michael's mother passed away years ago." I stared at her, stunned. "No, dear. I'm very much alive." She folded her arms, her perfect posture stiffening. "Look, I don't know what kind of scam this is, but you can't just show up at someone's door and claim that. Do you have any ID?" My throat tightened. I opened my purse with trembling hands and pulled out my driver's license. She took it and examined it for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she gave a tight little laugh. "Huh, okay. That's strange." She looked up at me again. "You could have called first, you know. You nearly gave me a heart attack." I tried to smile, but my chest ached. I wanted to surprise Michael. "Well," she said briskly, stepping aside. Surprise achieved. "Come in." I crossed the threshold slowly, feeling the warmth of the house wrap around me. But it wasn't the warmth I remembered. Everything inside gleamed, spotless and curated like a designer catalog. The walls were painted cool white, the furniture sleek and modern. No family photos, no warmth. The house had once been full of laughter, the smell of home, cooked meals, the sound of Michael's friends playing in the yard. I'd built this home brick by brick, working 2 jobs just to make the mortgage. Now it felt like I had stepped into a stranger's living room. "Please, have a seat," she said, gesturing toward a cream-colored sofa. I hesitated. It looked too expensive to sit on. She disappeared into the kitchen, and I heard her muttering under her breath, her voice low but sharp. Then I caught a few words that froze me in place. "Says she's his mother. Should I call the police?" My heart cracked. A few moments later, she returned with a glass of water, her face composed. "So, where did you come from?" she asked. "Florida," I said softly. Michael was supposed to visit, but work kept him busy. "So I thought I'd come here instead." "Right," she said, her tone clipped. "And how long are you planning to stay?" I looked around the room, my eyes tracing the empty spaces where my old furniture used to be. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "I just wanted to spend some time with my son." She gave me a small, polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. It's just that Michael and I have a pretty full schedule. He works late, and we have people over sometimes. Her words hung in the air, a subtle hint that I didn't belong here. I nodded quietly. I'll try not to get in the way. Before she could respond, the front door opened. Mom. My heart leaped. There he was, my Michael. My little boy, now a man in his 30s, dressed in a navy blazer, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. I stood up as tears filled my eyes. Michael? He dropped his bag and ran to me, wrapping his arms around me so tightly I could hardly breathe. Mom, what are you doing here? Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to surprise you, I said, laughing through my tears. You work too hard, and I missed you. He held me at arm's length, grinning. You're unbelievable. Then he turned to his wife. Emma, you met my mom. Emma's face turned pale. Yes. I just didn't realize. She didn't say she was your mom. Michael frowned, glancing between us. Didn't say. She told you who she was, didn't she? She let out a nervous laugh. Of course. It was just confusing. Michael smiled, brushing it off. Well, now you know. The most wonderful woman in the world. He kissed my forehead, and I saw Emma's smile falter. He helped me carry my suitcase upstairs, my old room. The one I had stayed in when I used to visit before was now a home office. There were 2 large computer monitors on the desk, a treadmill against the wall, and a bookshelf filled with business books and self-help titles. You can stay in the guest room for now, Michael said. We'll fix the office later. Make it more comfortable. I nodded. That's fine, sweetheart. I don't need much. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and left for a work call, promising to have dinner together. When the door shut behind him, I sat on the edge of the neatly made bed, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Downstairs, I heard Emma's voice again, low and clipped. I didn't sign up for this, Michael. You could have warned me. I sighed, staring at the window where the afternoon sun spilled through the blinds. I had thought this trip would bring me closer to my son, maybe even build a bond with his wife. But as the day faded, I began to realize something painful. This wasn't my home anymore. And Emma, the woman who had just called me a stranger, would soon learn the one thing she had completely misunderstood. I might not own the house anymore, but I still owned the truth. It's strange how memory can cling to walls. Every corner of that house seemed to whisper a story only I could hear. That evening, after dinner, I sat alone in the guest room. The faint hum of the dishwasher downstairs, blending with the sound of the autumn wind brushing against the windows. Michael and Emma had eaten quietly. Too quietly. Michael tried to make conversation, asking about my flight, about Florida, about the neighbors I'd left behind. But Emma barely looked up from her phone. When she did speak, it was about her latest marketing project, her pilot's schedule, and the new, modern upgrades she wanted for the house. I watched my son's face while she talked. His eyes were kind, but tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying too many expectations. After dinner, he hugged me goodnight and went upstairs to finish work. Emma stayed behind in the living room, still scrolling through her phone. I wanted to thank her for dinner, maybe even try to start over. But before I could say anything, she sighed loudly. I hope you're comfortable in the guest room, she said without looking at me. I am, I said softly. It's very clean. You've kept the house beautiful. Thank you, she said curtly, tucking her hair behind her ear. I try. I like things to be perfect. I smiled faintly. Perfection is nice, but warmth lasts longer. She glanced at me then, her eyes sharp. I believe in setting standards. Michael and I have worked hard to make this home ours. I'm sure you understand. Her words hit harder than she realized. Ours. Yes, she had married my son, and yes, they were building a life together. But every inch of this home held my fingerprints. The down payment came from my husband's life insurance. The renovations were funded by my savings. The paint colors, the kitchen tiles, the oak staircase. All of it had been chosen years ago, when this house was still my dream for his future. But to her, I was just a visitor. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought of the years I spent raising Michael after his father passed, juggling 2 jobs, paying bills, skipping meals so he could attend college without debt. Every Christmas, every birthday, every scraped knee. I had been there. When he got his first job in Seattle, I helped him buy this house. He had wanted to rent, but I said no. You need roots, Michael. You need a home. I smiled at the memory, until the present crept back in. The next morning, I came downstairs early, the smell of coffee filling the air. Emma was already there, dressed for work, her hair pulled into a neat ponytail. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. She nodded. "Morning." I noticed 2 cups of coffee on the counter. One for her, one for Michael, but none for me. I decided not to say anything. Instead, I poured myself a cup from the machine, careful not to spill. Emma watched me. "You know, that's the expensive blend Michael buys. The capsules aren't cheap." I looked at her, unsure whether to laugh. "I'll be careful then," I said kindly. She didn't smile. Before leaving for work, she turned to me and said, "I have a meeting downtown today, and Michael's working from home. Please don't disturb him while he's on calls." The tone wasn't rude, but it wasn't respectful either. The kind of tone you use with a stranger, not family. After she left, the house fell silent. Michael worked in his office most of the morning, occasionally checking in on me with that gentle guilt only a loving son could have. I assured him I was fine, but inside, I wasn't. I walked through the house quietly, tracing my hand along the banister. My husband had built that railing himself. I remembered how his hands, rough and steady, had sanded the wood for hours. He'd been so proud when it was finished. In the living room, I noticed something missing, the old oak chest. It used to sit right by the fireplace, full of photo albums, handmade blankets, and letters. I opened the closet and found it shoved into the corner, half covered by old wrapping paper. I knelt down and opened it. The smell of cedar and thyme filled the air. Inside were the albums, dusty but safe. I flipped through one, and there it was, Michael at 6 years old, holding a toy truck. Michael at 10, blowing out candles on a chocolate cake. Michael at 18, in his high school graduation gown, with me standing proudly beside him. And there, one photo I had forgotten. Our old house, small and faded, but alive with laughter. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Mom," I turned. Michael stood in the doorway, smiling gently. "I was just looking at these," I said. "You remember this?" I held up the picture of him holding his diploma. He laughed softly. "Of course I do. You were crying so hard that day." "I was proud," I whispered. "Still am." He came closer and sat beside me. "I know, Mom. You've done everything for me." For a moment, everything felt right again, until Emma's voice echoed from the doorway. "Michael, what are you doing sitting on the floor? You'll wrinkle your shirt. We're leaving soon." He turned, smiling. "Just looking at some old pictures. Mom kept them all." Emma crossed her arms. "That's nice. But we don't really have space for all that clutter. Maybe it's time to digitize them or something. My hands tightened around the album. Clutter. She gave a small, apologetic smile. I just mean, we've been trying to keep things minimal. Less old stuff lying around. Michael looked uncomfortable. Emma, it's fine, I said quickly, forcing a smile. They're just pictures. I'll keep them in my room. Emma nodded, relieved. Good idea. As she walked away, Michael whispered, Don't take it personally, Mom. She's just different. I finished for him, I know. That night, I overheard them arguing, quietly, but I heard every word. Michael, your mom can't just show up like this. We have lives, routines, boundaries. She's my mother, he said firmly. I get that, but you didn't even tell me she was coming. I don't know how long she's staying, and honestly, I don't feel comfortable. I heard silence, then his voice again, tired and defeated. Emma, she's not staying forever. Just be kind. I went to bed that night feeling smaller than I had in years. Days passed. Emma's tone didn't soften. She corrected how I folded towels, commented on my clothes, even criticized how I seasoned food when I offered to cook. But what hurt most was the look in her eyes. Not anger, but indifference. As if I didn't matter. Until one morning, something changed. I was out watering the plants in the front yard when our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Turner, came by. She was an older woman, cheerful and kind. Good morning, she called. Oh, you must be Michael's mom! I haven't seen you in years. Before I could reply, Emma appeared behind me, her voice overly bright. Hi, Mrs. Turner. How are you? Mrs. Turner smiled. Just lovely. I was just saying hello to your mother-in-law. She and I used to chat all the time back when the house was being built. I remember how proud she was of this place. Emma's face froze. Oh, really? Yes. Mrs. Turner laughed. She practically designed half of it herself. That oak railing, her husband installed it. Such wonderful people. Emma's polite smile faltered for just a second, long enough for me to see the truth flicker behind her eyes. For the first time, she realized that the house she claimed as hers had been built, quite literally, by the woman standing right in front of her. I didn't say a word. I just smiled at Mrs. Turner and thanked her for remembering. But inside, something stirred. Not anger, but a quiet, steady strength. She had no idea who she was talking down to. And soon, she would. The next few days passed like walking on glass. Every moment in that house felt carefully measured. Every word, every breath. Emma spoke to me only when necessary. Her tone was polite but cold, her eyes always calculating. Michael, caught between two worlds, tried to keep peace. But no matter how kind he was, the silence between his wife and me grew heavier. I spent my mornings in the garden, trimming roses and watering the hydrangeas that lined the porch. Gardening had always been my way of healing. I'd planted roses in this soil before Emma ever stepped into this house. They had once bloomed in deep, rich red, the color of home and memory. But now they looked neglected. The soil was dry, the petals fading. That morning, as I crouched to remove dead leaves, Emma stepped outside in her high heels, coffee cup in hand, already dressed for work. She frowned. What are you doing? Watering the plants, I said quietly. They were thirsty. You didn't need to, she said sharply. I hired someone for that. He comes on Thursdays. I looked at her, then at the flowers. Sometimes plants need care before Thursday. She gave a short laugh. You don't understand how busy life is here. We schedule everything for a reason. I understand perfectly, I said, wiping my hands. But love doesn't wait for a schedule. Her jaw tightened. She didn't like that answer. As she turned to leave, she added over her shoulder, "Just don't mess with the landscaping. I have plans to modernize it. Minimalist style. Cleaner. Cleaner." As if nature was something messy that needed fixing. When she left, I sat on the porch for a long time, letting the morning sun warm my face. My husband used to say the same thing every time we planted new roses. A home is alive when something grows in it. That afternoon, Michael came home early. He had a tired smile and 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Thought you might need one, Mom." I smiled gratefully. "You always know." We sat together in the backyard, talking about nothing and everything. His work, the weather, the neighbors. He told me about a project promotion, and I told him how proud I was. For a few moments, it felt like old times again. But then Emma returned. She came through the back door, sunglasses perched on her head, carrying shopping bags. Her eyes went straight to where we sat. "Oh," she said, her tone too light. "Enjoying the sunshine?" "Yes," Michael said, beaming. "It's nice out here." "I can see that," she said, glancing at the mug in my hand. "You're using the ceramic ones. Those are for guests." I set the cup down slowly. Michael frowned. It's fine," I interrupted. "I'll wash it after." Emma smiled tightly. "Good, thank you." Michael sighed. "Emma, can we not do this?" "Do what?" she asked innocently. "I'm just trying to keep things organized." The tension hung in the air, like smoke. I decided to end it before it ruined his evening. I stood up. "I'll head inside. You two talk." I walked toward the kitchen, trying to stay calm. But as I reached the sink, I heard their voices from the yard. Low, sharp. "She's nice," Michael said. "She's not doing anything wrong." Emma's voice rose slightly. "It's not about that, Michael. She's interfering." "You don't get it. This is our house, our life. She just showed up and expects everything to revolve around her." "Our house," Michael repeated quietly. "Emma, do you know who paid for this house?" There was silence. Then Emma laughed nervously. "What do you mean?" "You did. With your job." "No," he said firmly. "I didn't. Mom did. She used her savings and Dad's insurance money to make the down payment. She signed the loan when the bank wouldn't approve me a loan. Without her, this house wouldn't exist." Another pause, longer this time. When Emma spoke again, her voice was lower, defensive. "Well, I didn't know that. You never told me." "I didn't think I had to," Michael said. "It's not a secret. This house, every brick of it, is part of my mother's legacy." I froze at the sink, hands trembling over the dishes. My eyes filled with tears I didn't want him to see. But Emma wasn't finished. "So what?" she said sharply. "That doesn't mean she owns it now. You and I are the ones living here, paying the bills." "Things change, Michael. Things change," he repeated softly, disappointment heavy in his tone. "Yes, I can see that." There was nothing but silence after that. I slipped quietly upstairs, my heart breaking for my son, caught between love and loyalty, between a mother who raised him and a wife who barely saw where she stood. That evening, Emma didn't come down for dinner. Michael and I ate quietly. Afterward, he said, "Mom, I'm sorry. She shouldn't have spoken that way." I shook my head. You can't force someone to understand what they don't want to see. He reached across the table, taking my hand. "You didn't deserve that." I smiled faintly. "It's all right, son. Truth has a way of finding its moment." He looked at me curiously, but I didn't explain. Not yet. Emma's behavior changed. Not softer, but more cautious. She avoided me when possible, her polite smiles thinner than paper. I didn't push. I had no interest in conflict. But one Saturday morning, everything came to a head. Michael had gone to the grocery store. I was in the living room, dusting shelves, when a young man came to the door, a real estate agent. "Good morning," he said. "I'm here for the showing appointment." "The what?" I asked, startled. He smiled politely. "The open house, scheduled for today. The listings under Emma and Michael Carter." My heart stopped. Before I could respond, Emma came down the stairs, wearing a crisp white blouse and jeans, her hair neatly styled. "Ryan," she said brightly, "come on in. We'll start with the kitchen." I turned to her, stunned. "You're selling the house." She blinked, pretending surprise. "Oh, we're just exploring options. The market's strong right now." "Options," I said quietly. "This house is your family's foundation. Michael loves it here." She shrugged. "He'll adjust. It's too old-fashioned anyway. I want something newer, more modern." The agent, sensing tension, stepped back awkwardly. "I can come back later if—" "No," Emma said quickly. "We're fine. Please continue." I stood there in disbelief as she led him around. Through the living room I'd once filled with warmth. Through the kitchen I'd chosen tile by tile. Through the backyard where Michael had taken his first steps. Every word she spoke felt like an erasure. When they reached the stairs, she turned to me. "Would you mind stepping outside for a bit, Mary? It'll be easier without distractions." I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I saw what I'd been trying not to see. It wasn't just pride or ignorance. It was entitlement. She wanted to rewrite history, to erase me completely. I straightened my back. "You want to show the house?" I said calmly. "Fine. But you'll need to speak to the owner first." She laughed, not realizing what I meant. "That's exactly what I'm doing." "No," I said, my voice steady. "You're not." Just then, Michael walked in, grocery bags in hand, stopping short when he saw the real estate agent. "What's going on here?" Emma froze. "Michael, I was just showing Ryan the house. For the listing. I told you I wanted to." "You did what?" "Relax," she said. "It's just an idea. We can get a great price." He cut her off. "You can't sell this house, Emma." "Why not?" she snapped. "It's ours." Michael set the bags down. His voice was calm but firm. "No, it's not. The deed is in my mother's name. She's the co-owner. You can't sell anything without her approval." Her face went white. "That's not possible," you said. "I said this is our home," he interrupted. "But she's the one who made it possible. She's the legal owner. You can check the documents if you'd like." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Even the agent looked uncomfortable. I took a deep breath, stepping closer. "You wanted to speak to the owner, Emma?" I said softly. "Well, here I am." Her lips parted, but no words came out. "I may be old," I continued, "and I may not understand all your modern rules. But I know what love builds, and I know what pride destroys." Michael turned to me, eyes full of something between guilt and admiration. Emma's voice cracked when she finally spoke. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I said gently. "And maybe now you'll think twice before treating people like they're beneath you. Because respect isn't a favor. It's the foundation of every home." The real estate agent cleared his throat. "I think I'll, reschedule," he muttered, backing toward the door. Emma stood frozen, her perfect composure shattered. Michael turned to her quietly. "I think you owe my mother an apology." She nodded, tears forming. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." I looked at her, at the woman who'd tried so hard to erase me. And, surprisingly, I felt no hatred, just a strange, peaceful sadness. "It's not me you need to convince," I said softly. "It's yourself." That night, the house was quiet again. I sat by the window in my room, watching the lights of the neighborhood flicker. Michael came in, sat beside me, and said, "You handled that better than anyone could have, Mom." I smiled faintly. I didn't need to yell. The truth was loud enough. He laughed softly, resting his head on my shoulder. "You're still the strongest person I know." And for the first time since I'd arrived, I finally felt at peace. Emma didn't speak much after that night, but her tone softened, and her eyes, once sharp and distant, began to show something I hadn't seen before. Maybe regret. Maybe understanding. Whatever it was, I didn't push it away. Because sometimes justice doesn't come through punishment. It comes through realization. And that, I knew, was enough. After that day, something subtle but unmistakable changed in our home. The air that used to vibrate with tension now felt still, like the moment after a storm when the wind stops and the earth begins to breathe again. Emma was quieter, gentler, as though realizing that every sharp word she had thrown had cut deeper than she ever intended. Michael noticed it too, but he didn't say anything. He simply allowed time to do what arguments never could: soften the edges. Mornings became peaceful again. I would be in the kitchen, the scent of fresh coffee and cinnamon filling the air. When Emma came down the stairs, she no longer rushed past me. She'd smile, an uncertain, fragile smile, and say, "Good morning, Mary." Some days we even had breakfast together. Once, she asked shyly, "Would you show me how you make your cornbread? Michael keeps saying mine tastes like cardboard." I laughed, and that laughter felt like light slipping through the cracks. "Of course," I said, "but only if you promise not to rush it. Cornbread listens better when you slow down." She nodded, and together we measured flour, stirred butter, shared stories. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was something close to peace. Michael had always been patient, but now I saw him learning how to balance love with truth. One evening, as he cleaned the grill on the patio, he said quietly, "You know, Mom, I think I spent so long trying to make everyone happy that I forgot what happy even means." I smiled. "That's what growing up really is, son. Real happiness doesn't come from keeping peace. It comes from living with integrity." He nodded slowly. "I think Emma's learning that too." He was right. I could see her trying, helping around the house, calling her parents more often, even asking about my garden. The same woman who once saw my presence as an inconvenience was now asking, "Do you think hydrangeas can survive winter if I mulch them?" A month later, I found an envelope on my dresser, my name Mary, written in neat, unfamiliar cursive. Inside was a letter from Emma. "Dear Mary, I don't know how to begin except by saying I'm sorry. I thought respect was about control. I thought building a home meant erasing what came before, instead of honoring it. I was wrong. You built this house not just with money, but with love. And I walked into it like it owed me something. You didn't raise your voice. You just reminded me of what really matters. That strength I hope to learn from. Thank you for not giving up on us." Emma, I held the letter for a long time. Tears came easily. These weren't tears of pain anymore, but of quiet release. That evening, I found Emma sitting in the living room, watching the fireplace flicker. I sat beside her. "You wrote beautifully," I said. She smiled, embarrassed. "I didn't think you'd read it so soon." I did, I said softly, and I believe you meant every word. She nodded. I did. I know I can't undo what I said, but I want to start over. Maybe you can help me build this home the right way. I took her hand. The right way isn't about ownership, dear. It's about gratitude. You've already started. She looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time I saw no pride, only sincerity. By spring, the roses I'd planted were blooming again. Emma helped me prune them, careful not to cut too deep. The air was full of the scent of soil and sunlight. One afternoon, Michael brought out a camera. I want a picture of you too, he said, grinning. Oh no, I laughed, waving him away. I'm not photogenic. Emma nudged me playfully. Come on, Mary, for the family album. We stood by the garden, side by side. The camera clicked. When Michael showed us the photo later, I noticed something. Our faces, both lined and different, were lit by the same warmth. It didn't matter who had been right or wrong. What mattered was that we'd both learned to grow again. A few weeks later, the real estate agent, the same young man from before, sent a card. It read, "If you ever do want to sell, Mrs. Carter, I'd be honored to handle it personally. You seem like the real heart of that home." I smiled and set it aside. Justice, I realized, doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes, it's just knowing that truth had spoken for itself. Before I left to visit my sister in Oregon for a few months, Emma insisted on cooking dinner. The table was set beautifully, candles flickering, the air rich with roasted herbs. As we sat down, she said softly, "I know it's not perfect, but I wanted to do something nice before you go." "It's perfect," I said, and I meant it. After dinner, Michael raised his glass to family, the one that argues, forgives, and somehow always finds its way back. We clinked glasses, and for a brief, precious moment, the world felt whole. When I finally packed my bags, I stood for a long time at the front door. The same door where, weeks ago, I had almost been asked to leave. The same threshold where I'd once been invisible. Now Emma hugged me tightly. "Come back soon, okay?" I smiled. "I will. Keep the roses alive for me." "I will," she promised. As I stepped outside, the evening sky blushed pink over the quiet neighborhood. I thought about how easily love can be mistaken for weakness, and how, sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is simply stand your ground with grace. That was my justice. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in dignity. Because in the end, being the owner was never about the deed on paper. It was about the love that built the walls, the patience that kept them standing, and the truth that refused to be silenced.